Morning, guys. John Tarks here with Midline this morning. Wanted to come to you today to talk a little bit about, maybe managing some of those acres that don't necessarily make the family photos each and every year. Some of those poorer, tougher farms, some of those knobbier acres, some of the stuff you don't exactly brag about to your neighbors about what the yields make, but we all have them and they're all part of our operation. And as far as, collectively bringing up the average of our entire operation, how we manage these acres can have a significant impact on our bottom line. And one thing, being in the seed industry for as long as we've had, it does seem to me, and this is a conversation I've had several times with area agronomist John Swalwell with DeKalb, is that it seems like farmers are really quick to point the finger right at the hybrid or right at the variety if things didn't go well on some of those acres. And we've got some tools on our end that we can provide you to make you as successful as possible on those acres. There's really kind of 4 key criteria that I think one needs to really evaluate as far as success and what's going well or what's not going well on those acres. The hybrid and variety selection is one of them, but it's about the 4th in line. And today I just want to talk a little bit about some things to put in your toolbox and to consider on some of these tougher acres and managing these. I think in your toolbox, and we'll talk about this kind of from a kind of building a house type of example, but your foundation, you got to know your soil samples. When was the last time you had some cores pulled on this farm? Whether you had it done, somebody else did them for you, did them, you had it variable done, sampled, whatever, what do you know about your ground? I think things that, Dad and I wouldn't say that we're on top of our soil samples as well as some of our customers are, but, we pulled some samples recently here over the last winter, and we found that, it's been a long time since we've run some true limestone on our place, but we've definitely got some farms, especially stuff along Keg Creek, that we're going to run some variable scripts on. We're currently running right now. And so are your pH levels in line? What's your organic matter look like on some of these pieces? Is this an acre to maybe consider long-term corn on corn to put on these acres to build organic matter? We're going to need that to hold nutrients. We're going to need that to hold water. We're going to have tilth to the soil through that. These poor acres are probably not a great place just to go 50-50 every year and rotate things. This might be an acre to consider putting some alfalfa on for a cycle. Cover crops are another good thing to think about. But, something else Dad and I have had really good experience with in recent years is evaluating our sulfur levels on these acres. We've had some neighbors kind of make some note of a couple years back of some yellow spots in our side hills that, we thought were nitrogen issues. And once we got some sulfur out to address those issues, those really played a really key part in why we had probably the best corn crop of our lives last fall. So those are things to think about. Your P and K levels are also important. Your micros are important. But think of the foundation, the basement of your house. If you don't have that in line, everything else I'm going to talk to you about or you're going to consider as far as managing that poor acre is going to kind of be moot. As you move into the bricks, you move into the walls of your building, I really think your variable rate scripts are a huge part of this. And I think some of our success on some of these poor acres or some of these knobs, whether it's the whole farm or parts of the farm, have really been, aided by what we've done through climate and with the help of Andrew Kanak and Trevor Frayne and some of those guys, and through some of our scripting. We started with our corn going variable rate nitrogen scripts a year ago, and kind of with the base philosophy that, that poor ground, it's going to have less nitrogen holding capacity, if you will. So we're probably going to need more nitrogen on those spots. So we've gone to probably cranking up the nitrogen on some of these thin spots and putting on more in those areas than maybe we have on some of our better ground. I would say a range on a normal farm for Dad and I, something going into soybeans is probably 140 on the better ground in the spring and 190 on some of that poorer ground. And I can tell you that combined with putting some sulfur on those spots really paid dividends on our acres last year. And it was frankly a lot of fun. Spots that we've farmed over for decades that never did very well. I got to be kind of a fun part of the day to get in the combine. Let's go see how good the crappy ground can be this year. And doing your corn scripting, I think that's something we've been doing through climate too. You can really manage where you put those seeds, put it on your better acres or pull back a little bit on your poor acres and really manage your seed investment best on the corn side through that. And much like I talked about the philosophy on nitrogen scripting, I really think, as I've looked at drone footage over the years of some of these poor acres, you look at some of these soybean populations on some of these acres and you kind of scratch your head. There's not a lot out there. I really believe there's something to be made of and thought about with running variable rate soybean scripts with, again, opening up populations on some of this poor ground. So those are things to all think about from a scripting standpoint, whether it's plant populations, fertilizer, dry, injected, whatever you're doing with it. broadcast over the top. Those are things to think about. As you kind of move into the mortar of your bricks and whatnot, there's some things we can control here and some things we can't. I think weather conditions and weed control are probably your next things to really consider. And think back if things went well or didn't go well. How did that crop go on the ground? Was it wet? Was it cold? Or was it ideal? Was it exactly what you wanted? I know we've had some corn-on-corn experiences in the last 3 or 4 years where emergence was completely tied to early planting, cold soils. We had an example down on our test plot there a few years ago on a strip of 6154 DeKalb where it took it was like a whole month for the entire 1/1000th of an acre to emerge. So anybody that knows anything knows that's not going to be an ideal situation for yield. But growing conditions, and that's an obvious one too. Reflect on those throughout the year. Reflect on your dry periods, your wet periods, what it was. Did you place hybrids well where water can pond? Did you pick the right hybrids for the right farm? But I think the growing conditions, and this is a key part of being a DeKalb customer and why working with us really benefits you, is I've maintained this for a long time, that when growing conditions are ideal, everybody looks good. When the going gets tough, that's when DeKalb puts a 30 spot on everybody else around, and that's where your investment in paying a little extra for that good DeKalb seed corn really comes in well. And then weed control. Did we have some negative herbicide interactions with your hybrid? It's good to know from all your seed suppliers, do I have any herbicide interactions that are not going to go well with my product? And we're lucky in the DeKalb lineup, we have very few of those. But take a look at the products you use, the rates they're put on, application timing. Do you own your own rig? Do you have the co-op do it for you? How quickly were they out there? That could have had a negative impact on what's going on there. And then we get to the part where we come in with your DeKalb and Asgrow products, putting the roof on top of this whole thing. And we can do all the other stuff right, but if we don't put a good roof on it, everything else kind of fails. So, in general, a good general thought, whether you're buying from us or from somebody else, is this soil in these poor areas is typically not very healthy. There's something that we've talked about in some of these base layers beforehand that needs addressed. So think about, we probably want to plant healthy products on unhealthy soil. That's going to help us, this unhealthy ground is going to be a prime spot for disease, to host any kind of fungus, anything that we don't want that's going to be yield robbing. So let's think of really healthy products to go on some of these acres, whether that's corn or soybeans, and then consider fungicide probably more strongly on these acres than not. I know these are typically acres that guys get to where they don't maybe want to spend as much money on, but you kind of get what you invest in some of this stuff. If you plan on a short crop, you're probably going to get a short crop and vice versa. So I would really encourage you, don't get skimpy on these acres. Invest in these acres, improve these acres. You'll get out of it what you put into it, So, from a product selection standpoint within the DeKalb and Asgrow lineup, any of our disease shield corn products, a couple that you guys know a lot about would be 5834 and 6434, and they're double pro and smart stack counterparts. Those would be prime products to put into a situation like this. Or some of our defensively wired soybeans like 26X8s or 29X8s. Those would be good options for some of these poor areas and stuff like that. So, we also just have products that are flat launched that show a track record and a history of really fitting well on tough acres. And we've promoted that pretty hard here at Midline for 3 years. We've had a product like 6087, 6088 that has really killed it for us over the years. I've got multiple phone calls from guys that got the 3 criteria before the hybrid selection in place, and they call me and go, I can't believe what this farm is doing. I can't believe what 6088 is doing on these acres. I've never seen corn like this on this farm. And those are great phone calls to get. You feel like you're doing a great job for your customers when that's their experience. So, I think a newer 115-day hybrid that fits this area really well too would be 6594 and 6595. Some of our guys over in the Greenfield area, they've got some area next to some pastures and some cow ground that they've had good experience with this on, and we're looking forward to getting this on more and more of their acres. So, and we've got a few other options that are probably a little bit cheaper as well if you're looking to save a few dollars on that too. But I just kind of wanted to draw attention to that today, guys. Just the toolbox approach to managing those tougher acres. And while hybrid variety selection is a key part of it, it's one of about 4 criteria that you really need to evaluate. Have a great rest of the day, guys. If we can ever be able to help, give us a call. Again, my name is John Tarks here at Midline in Underwood, Iowa, 402-672-6951. Have a great day.